Alrighty, CNT125. We just got done looking at subnetting a Class C network. Let's now take a look at subnetting a Class B network. We're going to do the exact same process. We just have 2 octets to work with. So we will kind of shortcut it in there and then fill in the last octet, if you will. That's kind of what we'll do. So let's take a look at our network scheme again, if you will. We have a 180.40.00 network. So again, we're thinking 255.255.00 is the default subnet mask. All these ones are the default subnet mask, /16 kind of thing, default subnet mask. They said they need 20 subnets. Well, to get 20 subnets, barring 4 bits is going to give you 16. Barring 5 bits will give us 32. So we'll have, again, a good handful extra. But to get the 20 they need, I need to borrow at least 5 bits. So 2 to the 5 bits borrowed is going to give us 32 subnets. When I do that, here's my 5 bits borrowed. I'm going to be left with 8 plus these 3. 8, 9, 10, 11. So it looks like I'll have 11 bits left for hosts. So 2 to the 11 is going to give us 2048 addresses per subnet. Remember to subtract the 2. 2046 would be the usable. To get my subnet mask to reflect what we did, I'm going to turn this octet right here, this binary octet, into decimal. I'm going to add 128, 64, 32, 16, and 8. Those place values together, and I'm going to get 248. So 255, 255, 248, 0 would be my subnet mask now. Or I add up all the ones. My original 16 plus my 5 gives me /21. There's my 21 bits. So this number here, 255, 255, 248, 0 and /21 mean the same thing. Now that I have that, I'm going to take a look at this octet right here. This right here, again, is my interesting bit. That last place value that I borrowed. That last place value that I borrowed is the interesting bit. That last place value that I borrowed is that interesting bit. So if I look at that place value, 128, 64, 32, 16, 8. That is the 8 place value. Because it's the 8 place value, my subnets are going to go up by a factor of 8. So that is going to help me get this whole thing started. So again, first thing I do over here, first column, I'll start putting my subnet numbers. 0, 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56. Now I'm really going to end up with 32 of those. I'm just getting a sample started here. If I can do this many, I can do the next 20 some. Okay, so there is plenty more down there, but I'm just getting it started. So that would be my network numbers, my subnet numbers. Well, the next thing I'm going to do is just like I did before. I'm going to now fill in the other column. If this starts at 0, this one starts 8, this one over here has to end at 7. This starts at 16, this one has to end at 15, and so forth. So I'm going to fill that column in, 7, 15, 23, so forth. And again, once I get the first one set, 0 to 7, if I keep adding 8, I'll get all these numbers. Because that was my interesting bit. 8 place value was my interesting bit. Now, the next part gets just a little tricky, but if I remember my rules, it's easy peasy. This was only the 3rd octet that we're looking at. This is the 3rd octet that I'm doing the subnetting in, so I've only registered or plugged in the 3rd octet. I now need to account for the 4th. Well, if I remember my rules, the host portion is all zeros. So this last octet, this 4th octet, is all zeros. So if I tag on .0 now, 0.0, 8.0, 16.0, I just made the host portion all zeros. That would be the network or the subnet number. So if I just tag that 4th octet on with zeros, I now have the network number or subnet number. I'm going to follow the same logic on the other side. But the other side, remember, the host portion has to be all ones. Host portion has to be all ones. So if I set this out here, this host portion to all ones, I'm going to get 255. So if I tag on 255 for the 4th octet, that would make these all broadcast numbers. That'd make these all broadcast numbers. So 7, 255, 15, 255, 23, 255, and so forth. Okay? So now I have my network number column, and I have my broadcast address column. This next part, again, is just a little tricky, but if I think about it correctly, it's not too hard. So I now need the usable. So I need to increase by 1 over for here for the first usable, and I'll need to decrease by 1 over here to get the last usable. So it'll look like this. So think about when you're driving a car. When you're driving a car down the road, as you're driving down the road, the odometer starts increasing as you start driving down the road. And on your odometer, that far right number is the one that's increasing as you drive down the road. So when I want the first usable, I'm going to do 0.1, 8.1. I'm going to increase that last octet by 1 number. 16.1, 24.1, 32.1. I'm increasing that last octet position by 1 number. Just 1 number. Just like I drove 1 mile down the road. The odometer just clicked up 1 in that far right column. Now for the last usable, this is where I joke, we're going to do the opposite now. Don't do this. Don't do this because anymore it doesn't work. Really, really old odometers it would work, but not anymore. If I drive backwards a mile, again, don't do this, but if I drive backwards a mile, theoretically, that last number would decrease on my odometer. Again, modern odometers don't do this, and please don't do this for safety reasons. But if I can imagine driving backwards for a mile, that last octet number will decrease by 1 because I went backwards a mile. So 7.254, 15.254. I'm taking the 255 and decreasing by 1, 254. 23.254, 31.254. I'm decreasing that last octet by 1 number. This would then be my usable numbers right here. And again, if I fill in the whole address, the whole Class B address, I end up with 180, 40, 00, 80, 16, 0, 24, 0, 32, 0, so forth. Broadcast, 180, 47, 255, 15, 255, 23, 255, just like we had on our chart. And then the full address, 180.40.0.1 first usable, 180.40.8.1 for first usable, and 180.40.7.254 for the last usable, 180.10.15.254 for the last usable. So our plan is working. We're just writing out the 2 octets where subnetting occurred and the host occurred. And once I fill in the full address, it all now shows for us. All right. We'll come back next podcast and do a Class A.